welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I designed, cut, and printed out these sticker sheets that I'll be using in my planner. I am a really big fan of using stickers in my planner, but I do have a tendency, like I think a lot of people, to go a little overboard when I'm buying stationery and supplies like that. And I just decided, that's not something I want to be spending as much money on. And I have the ability to design stickers. I have a Cricut, and it would be really easy to just pick up an inexpensive pack of sticker paper and see if it's something that I can do myself. These are definitely not something I'm making to sell online. These aren't professional quality. I'm not a pro at making these stickers. These are just something that I designed and sized to use specifically in my own planner. I'm not a pro at using a Cricut, even though I've had mine for several years. I really only started using it this year. I only learned about kiss cutting and making sticker sheets and stuff like last week. So it's been a lot of trial and error and kind of garnering information and finding out how to make it work for me. Um, I did do these in Procreate and I set them up in Photoshop. Sometimes I will also use Illustrator, just depending on how I'm feeling that day. But for the sake of this video and for what most people use, I'm doing it in Photoshop. And I can walk you through all of my settings and my processes. That's the plural for process, right? Processes. I'll walk you through all of that and the sizing and things that I use, and I'll talk a little bit more about the materials I'm using and the printer I have and everything. So if you're interested in seeing how I did this and maybe using some of these tips to turn some of your own illustrations into stickers for your planner, go ahead and keep watching, and I hope you enjoy it. I start by taking any of the sketches that I want to include from my actual sketchbook and import them into Procreate. And I just do this by taking a picture of them, airdropping it to my iPad, and then opening up a new file in Procreate and arranging the pictures in there. This particular file is 17 by 11 just because I want to make sure the images are high resolution. Then I just merge all the sketches onto a single layer and I lower the opacity because that makes it easier for me to see what I'm doing. To outline everything, I'm using the Studio Pen, which is a basic brush that comes with Procreate, and I'm using black for everything. I am turning on the 2D grid drawing guide, and I'm not looking to make anything super precise or perfect, but when I'm drawing things that are more geometric and less organic, I do like to have a little bit of a guide to follow. After that, I'm just going to finish outlining and inking everything. I'm not worried about making these too detailed because the stickers are going to be pretty small when they're printed out, so any excessive detail isn't really going to show up, but I do still like to have line variation and a little bit of visual interest just to make them look less flat. One tip for inking digitally is to toggle your sketch layer on and off every once in a while just to make sure you like how your lines are looking. It can be a little distracting to have your sketch layer on behind your ink lines and you don't really get an accurate representation of them. So turning off your sketch layer allows you to see how the final ink will look, and sometimes you do end up needing to add more line weight or add more line variation, so just keep that in mind as you're working. Okay, I didn't include the entire clip because it's just more of the same, but all I'm doing is going in and finishing all the line work. After I finish outlining everything, I'll start coloring on a new layer. I do make a bit of a rough color palette, but I don't worry about sticking to it super strictly. I just want to have a little bit of a cohesive look. And I'm not focusing on shadow and highlight with these because, again, they're so small that that kind of detail isn't really important to me. I am filling in everything using either the monoline or the script brush. I do tend to bounce between the two of those. And one thing I do like to do is sort of put little color swatches in all of the stickers before I commit to anything, just to make sure I like how all of the colors look, and then I'll go in and fill everything. And here are the final designs. They're really simple, but they're really cute, and I'm honestly super excited to use these. I did make sure to fill in the ghost and the skull with white, even though that's not going to show up on a white background because I'm going to export this as a transparent image. And if you don't have any fill in there and you ever put it on a background that's not white, you'll obviously be able to see the background through the ghost and the skull. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're working with transparent backgrounds. Also, to make sure that it exports correctly, you want to turn off the background color layer so there's no color in the background. Otherwise, even if you export it as a PNG, it'll export with a white background. So after you do that, export it as a PNG and save it to your iPad. And then I like to airdrop it to my computer so I can work on it in Photoshop over there. I accidentally forgot to record the beginning part of this, but what I did was open the file in Photoshop, and then I went in with the lasso tool and I cut and paste each of the images onto its own individual layer. Since we're going to be adding a sticker bleed to every image, it's just a lot easier to work on it when they all have their own individual layer instead of being one flat image. Before adding the bleed to all of the stickers, I do like to turn on a layer that has a color fill just so I can see those white borders a little bit more easily while I'm working, and then I'll just delete that layer after. So I want to go in and add a stroke effect to each individual layer. And to do that, you're going to pick whichever layer you want to start with. I'll be starting with a spell book, and you're going to select that layer and then click on the right side of that layer bar, and that's going to open up a window called your layer style panel. And on the list on the left side, you can see there's an option for stroke. You're going to click on that and check it, make sure it's on, and you'll see that it automatically adds a stroke outside your image. And then you can adjust the settings to whatever you prefer. I personally like to set the size of my outline to about 20 pixels, but you could always adjust that depending on your preference. You do want to make sure the position is set to outside, because if it's set to inside or center, it's going to overlap on top of your artwork, which you don't want. I like to keep my blend mode at normal and my opacity at 100% to prevent any feathering, and then I like to put my fill at pure white, but if you are doing something with different colors, you can always add a color instead if it works better for your design. Then you're just going to hit OK, and you'll see that there's now a new little layer underneath that first layer that says what the effect is, and you can always click on that again if you want to make adjustments to it. Then I just went in and I repeated that with all of the other layers. I adjusted a few of the details on some of the stickers because the elements were too far apart, so when I created the outline, they kind of separated out as separate stickers, so I made sure everything was close enough so when I added that outline, the pieces were all touching, and there is still some gappage in there that I want to fill in, but I can do that later. So this next part might be a little bit confusing, but I'll do my best to explain it. But basically what we want to do is flatten these layers so the stroke is actually attached to each of the drawings without being a separate effect layer. In this particular video, I'm using a method that I saw in some other tutorials, which is to just create a new empty layer underneath one of your existing layers, and then you're going to select that new layer and the existing artwork layer, and you're going to merge them. And what that does is it flattens the image to one individual piece of art with the border around it, and you don't have like an extra effect layer or anything like that. It did occur to me, like literally right now as I'm recording this voiceover, that another option might be, instead of creating a new layer and merging it with the artwork layers, is to just select one of the artwork layers that has the effect on it and then just right click and hit flatten layer. I'm pretty sure that would do the same thing, but I am not like a pro at Photoshop, so don't take that as like absolutely true, but it might be something to think about because that might be an easier option. I'm not sure. However, the method where you add an extra layer actually is really helpful if you're filling in any weird gaps in your stickers, because you don't want to have too many gaps and cutouts because it makes the sticker more fragile. So what you can do is create that layer underneath your existing artwork, and then you can go in with a brush that's the same color as your stroke and fill in any of those gaps. And that way you don't have to worry about being super precise or worry about accidentally coloring over any of your artwork. It'll just fill in that space behind it, and then when you merge the layers, you'll have a completely white stroke and everything will be filled in. Now that my images are all prepped, I can go ahead and start actually working on my sticker sheet, and I know everyone has different methods for doing this. This is just what happens to work for me, but you can totally adjust the sizing or the setup depending on what works for you. I like to lay out and design one single sticker sheet, and I size mine at 3.25 inches by 4.5 inches and 300 DPI and CMYK color. And instead of doing multiple sheets on a piece of paper here, I'll do just the single sheet, and then when I import it into the Cricut design space, I'll duplicate it there. And I like this size because I can fit 4 of them onto a single sheet of paper. I turned off the guides because I don't really care that much about precision here, and I'm going to focus instead on making the background shape. So you do need to have a separate layer with the shape of the sticker sheet itself that you'll upload separately from the stickers in the Cricut design space, and I'm going to create this by using the rectangle tool. Again, I'm going to fill this with a color, so when I'm rearranging all of the stickers on here, I can actually see what I'm doing and I can make sure nothing's overlapping, and then I'll just set it back to white before I export it. And I do make the rectangle the same size as the document itself, but I will round the corners a little bit just because I like how it looks. Here I set it to about 40 pixels, but I never really worry about it being super precise, and I can always manually go in and curve it more or less if I feel like it. Then I just started copying and pasting all of the stickers into this document. I wasn't super precise about it, but I do tend to keep my stickers around 0.75 inches, though I will adjust them depending on how I think I'm going to use them. And I ultimately didn't get all of the designs on a single sheet, but that's okay because I can always just print a second sheet, which I actually end up doing later. So I just kept playing with them and rearranging them until I liked how it looked, until I felt like it utilized the space really well, and then I got ready to export it. I'm also going to delete the background layer, which was the layer underneath the rectangle that I made, and I just did that to ensure that the images would be transparent when I exported them. I didn't want anything behind them. So to export these separately, you just need to turn off any layers that you don't want to be visible. So first I turned off the rectangle layer and I exported just the stickers as a PNG, and then after that I turned off the sticker layer and had just the rectangle layer, and I exported that as a PNG as well, so they have two separate files. Now I'm going to switch over to my Cricut design space and I'm going to click New Project to get to the canvas, and I'm just going to upload the images that I just saved. When you're uploading into the Cricut design space, it's going to ask you what image type you have. I always hit complex just to make sure that it gets all of the details of what I'm cutting, and it does a really good job of removing the background. I don't usually have to add anything or take anything out, so I'm just going to hit apply and continue, and then I'm going to make sure to hit print then cut because we are going to be printing these and then kiss cutting them. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing with the background. Now this isn't a complex image, but I hit complex anyways because it doesn't hurt to have it. Then again, apply and continue and print then cut image. Now both of my files are right here in recent uploads, and I'm going to select both of them and then hit add to canvas. So for whatever reason, Cricut tends to import images larger than the actual file size, so this is actually too big. It's bigger than I want it to be, so I'm going to have to resize this as well as rearrange and tweak a few things just to get it ready. I brought the stickers to the front so I could actually see them, and then I scaled everything down. And I just did this by selecting the stickers and the background because I wanted everything to stay to scale, and then I changed the size to the size I want my sticker sheet to be. When this lock is turned on, your sizes stay proportionate, so if you change either the width or the height, the whole thing will scale down proportionally, so I just changed the height to 4.5 inches. Now this part's a super cool hack I've seen floating around about how to get multiple sticker sheets onto a single piece of paper, and what I'm going to do here is actually duplicate the background layer 3 times, so I have 4 of them in total. Then I'm going to align all of them and stack them so they are perfectly on top of each other. And I'm doing this because I want to make kiss cut sticker sheets. Kiss cut means the cutter cuts through that top layer of sticker paper, but it doesn't cut through the backing. But since there are multiple sheets on the page, I want to make sure the sticker sheet itself is actually cut all the way out. So when you stack all of these backgrounds on top of each other, it tricks the Cricut into cutting over the same line 4 times. So the stickers will only be kiss cut, but the actual sticker sheet will be cut out completely. When everything was aligned, I grabbed all of the layers and I hit attach so I could group them all together. You don't want to flatten them because you do want the layers to be separate, but this does make it easier to manage all of the different layers. Then I duplicated that entire group so I could get a second sticker sheet of the same kind. I know I can fit 4 of these onto a single sheet, but I actually am going to upload a different sticker design as well, so I can do 2 of these and 2 of a different design. So this is a super important detail that I totally forgot to mention earlier, but even though I'm printing this out on letter size paper, the actual cut area available on a Cricut is actually smaller. It's only 6.75 by 9.25 inches, so you have to make sure anything that you're cutting fits into that area. Since everything's all set, I'm going to hit Make It up in the corner, and it'll show me a preview of how it's going to look on the cutting mat. I'll hit Continue, and on that page, I'll make sure that my Cricut is connected via Bluetooth, and then I will send the document to the printer. When this window opens up, I always turn off Add Bleed and I turn on Use System Dialog. I already added my own bleed, so I don't need to add more, and I like to use my own printer settings. So I'll hit print, and when you do this, sometimes the printer window will show up behind the Cricut design space, so you have to go and drag it forward. Then I just set everything how I want it to, and I send it to the printer. I used the washi sheet material setting and I set it to slightly more pressure, and that seems to work really well for the paper that I have. The page is going to print with a black box around it, and that's actually what the Cricut scans in order to align everything and make sure it's cut out correctly. Then I just put the paper onto a cutting mat and I insert it into my Cricut and let it run like normal. So this is why I duplicate the background layer multiple times, because even though the stickers have only been cut out once, the actual sticker sheet is being cut out 4 times, and that way I know it's cutting all the way through the paper. When it's finished cutting, you just pull out the cutting mat, very awkwardly try to remove all of the excess paper with one hand while you're filming, fail horribly, and then you have beautiful sticker sheets. And I think that's it for this video. I hope that was helpful to some of you guys. I know that was a lot of information. It definitely wasn't meant to be like an in-depth tutorial on how to use Photoshop or how to use a Cricut. It was really just walking you through how I made these particular sticker sheets. But if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. I am not super great with Photoshop or with Cricut, but I have been able to troubleshoot a few things with sticker making, so I might be able to help you out. I will also be listing all of the materials and like programs and printers and things that I use down in the description box, so you can check that out if you're interested. If you have any suggestions for future videos or anything else you'd like to see, go ahead and let me know, and until my next video, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!